2, 3, 4.
Hello, everybody. This is the Good Morning Guys podcast. Joining me today, Marc. Marc likes long walks on the beach and Mexican food. And Patrick also is with us.
Hello.
He likes Power Rangers and some other stuff.
You have set.
Would it be specific?
You have set
He
the
likes
bar,
other
sir.
stuff.
You have set.
He's
the
one
bar.
And I
of
am,
those people
course-
that likes things.
And I am, of course, Ronnie J. And you're right, Patrick. I do like things. Just
Well,
not
we have
Superman.
so much in common.
All right. So we're going to begin the show. We're going to go right into it. This is a Good Morning Guys podcast. Thank you for being here. This is episode number 47. That's 4-7 for those of you keeping score at home. None of us can believe we've even made it this far, to be honest. Nobody's more surprised than me. I've put in zero work for this entire thing, and I've only benefited from it, honestly. This has been the best thing going that I
He is
have.
the
So
leech
why are
of
you
podcasting.
hosting this week?
You made me.
That's a good point.
You guys made me do this. Obviously, I've prepared vigorously for this entire week for this.
Obviously. Yep.
Oh, I have
believe
so
it.
much stuff written down. I have hello, everyone, and it says Good Morning Guys, episode 47.
Thoroughly ready to go.
Oh, man, I have just been up studying late all night. But I think we should start probably with some news, some good news, maybe, from Marc.
Sounds like a good idea. I think. This is riveting podcasting right here.
We are tearing it apart, I'm telling you what. Lucas said not to make this an improv episode, but he should have known better.
I might as well just call the improv episode right now. Yeah, so my week has been pretty interesting. This past Saturday, I actually did, with my wife, we did a yard sale at our house. So basically we had a bunch of stuff in the house that we wanted to get rid of, and we had very little storage space in this house. So it's like, we got to get rid of this stuff. And so we decided, let's just have a yard sale. It'll be fun, and any of the money that we get from the yard sale, we're just going to give it to my dad and my stepmom because, as you guys might know from previous episodes, my dad is currently in the hospital dealing with a lot of stuff. Obviously, costs a lot of money to be in the hospital. So it was actually my wife and I, and then my mother and father-in-law actually donated some things for the yard sale, and then my brother and sister-in-law also did as well. So we did pretty well. I think we ended up getting we had like $52 or something like that, which is not bad. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. And then we actually got later on a $100 donation. So
Oh, awesome.
yeah,
Oh, yeah, that is cool.
So it kicked it up for sure.
So in this yard sale, were there things that you were selling that you were kind of like, I don't want to get rid of this?
Not really. Most of those things that I had out, they were stuffed in like Sterilite bins in a closet, and it's like, I don't touch these things ever, so might as well get rid of it and get rid of the space. The biggest seller at the yard sale was actually like my CD collection.
Really?
Yeah. I was genuinely shocked. Because
What did that go for? $4.50?
No, actually, I think it was a little bit more.
So what kind of were these like? What kind of CDs were these?
Oh, they were like a lot of Christian albums, like contemporary Christian music, and some other like old school, like early 2000s. Like I think I had like a Death Cab for Cutie CD in there. I'm trying to remember what else there was, but
What do you even sell a CD for anymore? Because I thought they were just coasters now.
Yeah, you can hang them on your rear view mirror in your car.
it's true. It's true. Nice reflective pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I sold each of them for like 50 cents each. And I had a pretty, not like huge, but like pretty good amount of CDs. And this one dude showed up and literally like bought half to 3/4 of the collection.
Nice.
So we were genuinely shocked. We sold a bunch of household items and little knickknacks and things. I think the first thing that actually went was we actually had this like ceramic pig decoration. Something you'd like, I don't know, if you had like a farm style house or whatever, something you'd put up for decoration. And we inherited that from another family, which that's a whole story for a different day. But so anyway, we had this pig sort of table ornament as well as like an actual piggy bank, and those were actually the first things to go, because apparently this lady was all big into pigs. So
All right.
Well, jackpot.
yep. But yeah, we did very well. I was really happy with it, and I was glad to be able to help my parents out. And then later on that day, we actually had a big party at my in-laws' house because I think I may have shared with you guys that my mother-in-law actually got her doctorate in education. So she is now Dr. Worley.
Are there 2 doctors now in your family? Wasn't your wife, didn't she do something? Didn't she just get her master's?
No.
I thought it was because Marc went by the music doctor.
There's 3 doctors.
I am
Doctor Who.
3 now.
I am the spin doctor.
Ooh, awesome. Wish I would have used that for the intro.
No, I think she's the first doctor in the family. My wife has a bachelor's degree. I have a bachelor's and a master's. But yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, so my mother-in-law is now a doctor. So we had a big party at my in-laws' house to celebrate. They had all sorts of good food. They had not one but 2 cakes. One was chocolate, one was vanilla, and they tasted amazing.
So just out of curiosity, so I assume she decided to go back and like get her doctorate at some point. What was that process like? Like how long did that take her? Because I went through the master's program, and it technically can be like a 1.5 year program, but I did it over the course of like 4 years just because I was working full time. So I imagine a doctorate would be much longer.
I immediately go to the Tommy Boy where he's like, a lot of people go to school for 8 years or go to college for 8 years. Yeah, they're called doctors.
Yeah, and that's about how long it took. So my mother-in-law, I think she got, I want to say it's either her associates or her bachelor's. I want to say it's associates from a school called Appalachian State, or Appalachian, however you want to say it. I think it's Appalachian. And I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing.
Appalachia.
It's whatever.
That's how I say it.
App State. So she went there. But then I want to say she actually got her bachelor's and her master's from Liberty. And then she went on to go for her doctorate. So this has been pretty much an 8-year process that she's gone through. And once you get up to doctoral level, it's insane the amount of studies. And like I think her final her dissertation for her doctoral degree was 247 pages. And it is going to be nationally published.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you think you could write 200 pages on yourself?
I don't think I've written 200 pages in my life cumulatively.
But yeah, No, her dissertation defense was the role of grandparents in Christian education, basically. And so she had to do all sorts of focus groups and interviews and all that kind of stuff, and compile all her research into one big presentation. And she had to defend her concept for the dissertation first, get that approved. There were so many hurdles she had to jump through for this, and then she actually had to defend her findings at the very end. And
did a publisher just read that and decide that they wanted to publish it, or did she send it to him?
So I think Liberty has their own channels in which they publish any dissertations. So it just automatically, once it gets approved at the doctoral level, I think it automatically, and I think they approved it without any revisions, which is very rare. So big shout out to her for that.
I mean, she did a really good job.
Yeah. And so I think Liberty has their own channels which they go about publishing their students' dissertations and stuff. So yeah, it's a big deal for her. Absolutely. Super proud of her. But yeah, the party was a great time. We had a time of worship because we have 2 worship leaders in the family. So my mother-in-law kind of requested that we just have a time to get together and just thank God for all that He has done, and just join each other in worship. So that was awesome. Those were the 2 big things. Also, lots of Apex, lots and lots of Apex. I'm not sure at which point which game's exactly going to dethrone it, but I think I'll always go back to Apex. But I'm actually interested in a game that comes out at the end of this month called Control.
I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, so I think I might stream it. I don't know.
Ooh.
Yeah. Trying to continue my my resolution of streaming some more, trying to bring that back to life. So I may do that.
Nice. Cool.
So, but that is pretty much it on my end. So, Patrick, how was your week, sir?
It was good. Last Friday was my birthday.
Yeah,
and buddy. And the plan originally was for my wife to take the kids camping, and they were going to go with her brother and their family, but there was some sort of scheduling conflict that meant that they had to cancel. So I asked Mel, I was like, hey, it's my birthday on Friday. Is it cool if I go up to Indiana and see Ed Placencia? And she said, okay. So I ended up driving 3 hours to go see him on Friday morning. And we hung out until around, 8 o'clock that night. So I got to hang out with him for about 8 hours. And it was a good time. I did that earlier this year. So it was good to go up there and see him again. So we just played games, watched comedy shows. And the game that we played was a co-op game that he's been touting called 39 Days to Mars. And this game, it's a very, very simple game. It's simple drawn. It looks like they're like stick figures. These 2 guys that want to go to Mars, and they have to fix their ship. And something goes wrong with each part of the ship, and you need to fix it. And to fix it, you need to complete a puzzle, complete a scenario, and it's a co-op game. So there are things like every time something goes wrong, these 2 British guys are like, well, we need to go make a scone before we fix this, or we need to make a cup of coffee before we have to fix this. And it was without fail. And making a cup of coffee was a mini game that was co-op. Making a scone was co-op. There was some things where you had to decipher Morse code. You had to read pages from a book and figure out how to grow plants, cut into the right size. It was just
Okay.
like, but it was like, so like say you had to cut a plant to the right size. So on the screen were like two hands, and one hand was my hand and one hand was Ed's, and we had to grab the shears and we had to move them around to cut certain things. To like in like for pages, if you need to look at a page to turn it around, I needed to grab one part of the page. He had to grab the other end to turn it around to look, for it to look upright. It was a lot of that. Making the scones was probably the hardest because you had to like put like butter on this scone, and this butter is just like flopping all over the place. There was no way that one person could do it. So we both had to grab the knife and throw the stuff on there and pour, like, if you needed to make some coffee, you needed to pour milk in there or throw some ice cubes in there. It required a lot of communication, which we were not good at. There was one point as just like, yep, 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 yep. And then that was, and then we finished whatever mini game it was, and we communicated, but it was very minimal. But it was funny. So spoilers for the end of the game, which I thought was so hilarious. I don't know how many people are going to play this game. So they get to Mars, and the first thing they do is once they get to Mars, well, now that we're at Mars, we have to make a cup of coffee. So the first thing they do is make a cup of coffee.
Oh, this is
Mars.
such a game for Ed.
It really was, but it was fun. It was a good time. We had a lot of laughs with that one. But that was a good birthday for me. But the worst thing was just the drive. I mean, driving back 3 hours in the middle of the night. Google Maps was taking me like all these side roads because there was a lot of construction that was going on at night from where he lives to where I live. So it only was like, I guess, 15 minutes longer, but it was weird. I felt like I was in a bad part of the neighborhood on the way home kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I got home fine.
Nice.
Other than that, last week we were talking about Avatar and the Avengers, and I wanted to watch Avatar, and I have the Blu-ray. So my daughter and I watched Avatar last week. We did it in 2 sessions, and she had so many questions. So if you've seen Avatar, there's they're like, she asked a question, how did they get to this world? I have no idea. Why are there rocks just floating in the air? I have no idea. Why do those horses have 6 legs? I have no idea.
Sensing a trend here.
Just watch the movie. Too many questions. So we're like 50 minutes in, and she's like, "This is boring.
Ooh,
this isn't fun." You know, at that point, you know, like what was his name? Sam Worthington. Is that his name?
Yep.
He wasn't like the Avatar at that point to where he was like learning to run and learning the ways of the Na'vi. But once he did that, it was like 15 minutes later. She's like, I like this movie. So
typical kid.
But it was good. There was one point in the movie where I had to pause it and tell her what was happening. It was the point where like the Avatar and Neytiri, they like get together and have like an intimate scene. I had to explain to her that they were becoming husband and wife, basically. And it wasn't like a gratuitous scene. They were just hugging and they connected their hair. So like that's one thing I had to explain to her. But other than that, I mean, she just had questions like, why is that happening? Why did they need their masks? What is oxygen? I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Just watch the movie, please.
Just watch it. Yeah. But after we watched it, it was like 3-hour movie. She wanted to watch. Wants to watch it again. So, yeah, it's a good movie. It still holds up after 10 years. It still definitely holds up.
I didn't actually watch that until a couple of years ago. I remember when it first came out, seeing the previews and things like that, and I thought, I won't like that. And I never watched it. And then it was on TV, and I started watching it. I was like, man, this is a really good movie. So I ended up watching it all the way through, and I've actually watched it a couple of times since then. Like, it is an incredible movie. It really is.
I had the same preconceived notions about Lord of the Rings when that came out. I was like, I'm not going to like this movie. And then all my buddies wanted to go. I'm like, all right, I'll go with you. And after it, I was like, I like Lord of the Rings. I'm so glad I went. We went to Kings Island over the weekend. We went to the water park. And there was one thing that happened when we got there. So we got there and we do the lazy river. And then Clark wants to go in the pool. So Claire and I went to go to ride one of the water slides. And it was I think we stood in line for about a half hour. And at that point, we're like, man, I wish we went back to the pool or went back to the lazy river. But once we got there, it was unlike any other water slide that I've ever seen. So once you get in there, there's like 3 slides, and there's like the tube slides, like the circular enclosed slides. They weren't like open. You get to the top of this slide, and they have like capsules. You like stand upright on these capsules. The doors close, and there's a countdown. It says 3, 2, 1, and then the floor underneath you just disappears, and you fall straight down into the tube.
Oh my gosh!
It was a new slide.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if it was new last year or it's new this year. But it was awesome. Like, it's not like a normal slide where you just like push yourself or hold onto a bar and get going. This was a cool start to a slide, and so we wanted to go again, but it was like a half hour wait, and it was kind of hot. So, but yeah, that was really, really cool.
Nice, that's awesome. And that's it. You said that's at Kings Island, right?
Kings Island, yeah. Mm-hmm. So the last thing was. When we were going to Kings Island, I thought I heard something downstairs in our basement when we were going to the van. I kind of stood there. My son was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Shh." He's trying to hear something. He's like, "What are you looking at?" Shh. And then he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Okay, never mind. Let's just go. I can't hear anything." So when we get back from Kings Island, I'm laying in my bed, and Clark's like, "There's a bird in the house."
Oh my god!
Oh no!
So my first thought was not to get the bird out of the house. Was I need to get out my phone and I need to video this. So, so I videoed for about a minute and I rewatched it because I didn't hear Clark say it at first. Clark was like, "I'm scared. I don't want it to peck me."
Valid concern.
You tell him it only goes after little girls. He'll be fine.
Well, we ended up getting that little finch, I think it was, out of the house. But I don't know
How'd you get him out of the house? You skipped.
I grabbed like a big beach towel that was in my hands and closed all the doors in the house. We opened the front door and the side door, and I kind of like,
herded him out.
Yeah, red flag, red tape, whatever, with the bull, and tried to get him out of there. So.
Gosh, Patrick the Matador.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the gaming front, just playing Apex. That's pretty much all I've been doing. I didn't get 16 wins like I did the previous week. I only got 6.
Oh, bummer.
But yeah, womp womp. But yeah, that's it. That's all I did.
Nice.
Ronnie,
Ooh,
how about you?
This is like the biggest update I've ever had to give, I feel like. So, couple things for me. So I was out last week. The reason I was out last week is on Monday of last week, I was on my way back from Chicago. So it was my first time ever going to Chicago.
Nice.
It was really cool. It was just for fun. We went up. There was a big volleyball tournament. It's called Vollywood that they have every year in Chicago.
How far is that from Cincinnati?
It's about 5 hours.
Okay, not bad.
About 5 hours. It wasn't too bad. I drove the whole way both ways actually, but I'm one of those people that I like to be the driver,
Sure.
I'd rather not be a passenger for the most part. But so we decided we were going to go to this Vollywood thing. We signed up for the tournament and we left Friday early on Friday. We got down there. I think we left probably like 10 a.m. on Friday. So we got down there and actually Friday evening we did like a sailboat tour, which is something I probably wouldn't normally do. It's not something I would have ever looked up, but a bunch of people from the volleyball place that we play at were going on this tour. So we, of course, like went with everybody with the group. And it was really cool. It was really cool. We got on this really big sailboat. There was probably, I'd say probably like 70 passengers, 70, something like that. I mean, it was pretty big. It wasn't, when I say sailboat, I used to think like the small sailboat with a couple people on it. This was like a pirate ship sailboat. I mean, it was big.
Wow.
It was a big ship. So we got on that, and basically what it did was, it kind of just like left from the city, went out and just kind of did like a big loop and then came back for the most part. So it was kind of like almost like a sightseeing type thing.
Cool.
But it was really cool. It was like perfect weather, especially with it being like really windy out there. It was really nice. We got a lot of really cool pictures. So while we were out on the sailboat, the sun was like setting at that time. So the sun's like setting down into the city as we're like out on the sailboat. So like we had some really cool pictures. But it was like a really, really, really pretty.
Nice.
So we did that on Friday. On Friday night, we got some Chicago-style pizza. And that's first time I've ever had that, right? And this was...
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've never had pizza from Chicago. I've had what they call Chicago-style pizza, which not even close, by the way.
Nope.
Where'd you end up going?
It's Giordano's.
Yes.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, Giordano's is where
one.
we went. There's a bunch of them down there.
Yeah.
There were a bunch of them within like a 5-mile radius.
Yeah.
I feel like there was just all over the city. So we went there. Everybody told us it was pretty good, and we got like a barbecue chicken pizza. And it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was really, really good.
It's one of their deep
but
dish ones,
I was
right?
not expecting, like when people say Chicago style pizza, it being like this thick pizza and everything, like I was thinking like, oh, okay, it's probably, just like pretty thick pizza. No, this was a cake.
It was a mountain
with pizza ingredients.
That's pretty accurate.
Used, you know what I mean? Like it was so ridiculous. Like 2 pieces and you were just like, in the ER.
Ready for a nap.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it was really good. It was good. I never had it before, so I was excited to try it out. And we did that. On Saturday, we had the volleyball tournament. So we went, the volleyball tournament for us, we didn't play until 2 p.m. So we actually got up, and the hotel we were staying in was in downtown Chicago, and it had a rooftop pool, which was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah, so the 40th floor was the pool.
That's crazy.
And it was open. So it was pretty cool. It was really a really cool thing. So we went up for the early part of Saturday and hung out at the pool for probably 2 or 3 hours. And then afterwards, we went to the volleyball tournament. The volleyball tournament started at like 2 p.m. It's this big, like, Vollywood is basically like, it's almost like a festival, I guess is the best way to describe it. They had a bunch of live bands and stuff play at Vollywood. So it was this big, just crazy kind of beach party with volleyball. So we started at 2 p.m. We got in 2 games, and then a storm came in and flooded the courts, like crazy storm. Like they have like the retaining wall out there, and the water was like coming up over the retaining wall and stuff, and just like flooding onto the volleyball courts and stuff. So we got 2 games in. They did end up canceling the tournament, so we didn't get to finish that. But in all honesty, like for me, it was like, we had been at the pool for the most part, and then we went out there, and it was scorching. Like it was the surface of the sun out there. And by the time they canceled the tournament, I was like, this is good. This is really good.
I'm okay with
I'm
this.
I'm glad I did not have to finish this tournament because I am exhausted already. Like I'm exhausted, like dehydrated. It was just one of those days where it was so hot that it's like you just could not drink water fast enough. Like you couldn't even stay hydrated. Lucky for us, the water, like and the actual like beach water was freezing cold. I don't know how that works, but it was like 100 degrees outside, and you get in that water, and like it took a lot of courage to like get like waist deep. You know what I mean? Right. Eventually you just jump in, and it's one of those ones that like just kind of shocks your whole body at first. So it was actually really nice and refreshing once you finally got the courage to take the dive.
Once you finally got numb, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. And once you were in, you just had to stay in until you got numb, and then you could just hang out in there. But it was fun. It was a fun experience. A couple things in the middle of all of that weren't fun is I brought with me one of those like 10 by 10 like canopy tents that you set up and you like stake into the ground, you know?
Sure.
So I brought this, and it was a great idea to bring. But what I hadn't considered is like the 30-minute walk from our hotel to the beach. I would have to carry it the whole way.
Oh,
this
goodness.
thing is like 8 feet long. Like it's like a big square, like a foot on each side or whatever, and it's pretty heavy. So I'm carrying this thing over my shoulder. 30 minutes, like in the dead sun. Like it was rough. It was really rough. So by the time I got to the tournament, I was already drenched. Like I actually I was like, I told everybody, I was like, I'll stop right here for a second. And I just ran and jumped into the water because we were walking along the beach. I just ran and jumped in and then continued to walk after that. But it was it really was a good time. We had fun playing. And we actually played really well. We played 2 games and we won both of them. So technically, we're undefeated in Chicago.
Nice.
All right.
And so later that night, we went to dinner. We went to this place called the Windsor. It was actually a restaurant in the hotel that we were in, and it was a really classy like restaurant. And the food was awesome. So we had a good time there, and that was pretty much it for us. We were pretty much cooked after that, after dinner, after the whole day of just being beaten down by the sun.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And on Sunday, obviously, a lot of people from the volleyball place, they left. We decided we were going to leave on Monday instead and just kind of have that next day to relax and kind of sightsee a little bit maybe. We ended up going our hotel was right on – have you ever heard of like the Magnificent Mile?
Oh, yeah, sure.
In Chicago. So our hotel was right on the Magnificent Mile.
Nice.
And so we were like right in the middle of it. So on Sunday, we actually went out and did a bunch of shopping, just kind of like going in all those shops and stuff like that, kind of walking up and down, kind of like just seeing the city a little bit. So it was really cool because, you know, I had never been, and it was a different thing, you know, coming from like Ohio going to Chicago. Like I put my car in a parking garage on Friday when we got there, and I did not get it back out until Monday when we left. You know, everything is pretty close. You just walk everywhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we did that. Like we, you know, just kind of checked out all the shops and stuff like that. And then on Sunday night, we really didn't have anything going on, and we decided to go to the movies. And we saw The Lion King.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. I actually really, really loved it. I would never have considered myself like a huge Lion King fan. I always liked the movie, like when I was a kid and stuff, but just never like, oh man, I gotta go see this remake of The Lion King. But the couple people we were with, they said like, hey, let's go see it, and I'm like, yeah, that would be fun. But I really, really enjoyed the remake. Like it was almost identical to the original. Like they did not veer far away at all from that exact format and movie, and even down to some of the lines were the exact same, but just like with those real animals, like it was just a really neat, and it did have a really just a huge like nostalgia feeling, you know, all those songs, and like, you know, even me who hadn't seen it in, oh man, it probably has been like 20 years, but it's like I remembered all those lines, you know what I mean? Like I knew it was coming still, so it was a really cool, experience. And the theater was really cool that we went to go in. One of those theaters where they like bring your food out to you and stuff.
Oh, yes.
So it was a really
nice.
really nice theater. But so we had a good time. That movie is great. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend seeing it. I would give it
what would you rate it?
Probably 8 out of 10 warthogs.
Nice.
How was Seth Rogen's character?
He was so good. He was Pumbaa. So just Seth Rogen, even down to like his little like laugh that he does. Like I actually, when I went into the movie, I hadn't considered, I remember hearing when it first came out that they had a lot of celebrity like voices and stuff, but I never really paid attention to it. Like partway through the movie, I was like, that's Seth Rogen. That's definitely Seth Rogen. And I was like, you know what? I remember that now. And then when Timon was talking, I can never remember the actor's name.
Not John Oliver. He was Zazu.
He played in the Big Bang Theory. He was what's his name? Who's the main character in the Big Bang Theory? Sheldon. So I believe it was Sheldon.
Jim Parsons?
Jim Parsons, I think, was Timon. Had to fact check that part. But I know now afterwards.
Working on it.
Afterwards, I think Nala was played by Beyonce.
Yep.
Which was kind of cool. Yeah. So no, it was really like star-studded cast, and man, it was really good. It was
awesome.
Really good. So I was glad I went to see that. Monday we ended up kind of hanging around, shopping a little bit, and then drove home, and that's basically why I wasn't here last week. So, but it was a really fun experience, and I'm definitely glad I went. I think we'll probably go back next year. That same tournament, it was really fun. I will be more prepared next year for sure.
You won't be carrying a canopy for 30 minutes?
I think I'm going to hire a guy to carry the canopy next year. Whatever the cost is, I don't care.
So, just a fact check. Jim Parsons was not Timon.
Oh, no.
Who
was it?
Billy Eichner is Timon.
Eichner?
He was on Parks and Rec.
Oh, okay.
So,
which character was he in Parks and Rec?
Character named Craig Middlebrooks. I have no idea because I have watched very little.
I have seen a little bit of that episode, and I've seen a little bit of that show. I think I know which person they're talking about.
Gotcha.
So other than that, we got back pretty regular week. This past Saturday, I played another volleyball tournament. Go figure. That one was just here, and we lost, but
Boo.
Of course we had a good time. So nice. I definitely will not complain. I never go to a volleyball tournament, by the way, with the anticipation of actually winning. Like, I've never gone into one thinking I'm going to win this for sure.
Yeah.
That never happens. I usually just go to like have fun and laugh,
What? You show up not prepared for something? What? I don't get that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just on the, just a leaf on the wind.
Love it.
This past week, I actually played. I played Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Good
volleyball.
Night.
Yeah, so I ended up playing in leagues and all of those, and then the tournament on Saturday. So today, I actually went to see my trainer, and I don't know if I've ever been more sore in my whole life. Like, it is just, it's a product of getting old. Like, my joints are all just killing me. Like, my shoulders, my knees, like everything hurts. I'm just like I need a couple of days just to like lie down. But it was fun. I definitely, if I had to do it all over again, I would definitely do it again. I keep, volleyball is one of the things that makes me the most happy. So I definitely tend to flock towards that.
Awesome.
A couple other things. I finished Firefly.
Oh,
so
man.
I finished first season of Firefly, and I actually watched Serenity also.
Oh,
yeah.
What did you think of that?
I actually really liked the movie. I love the movie. I like the movie, I think, because it provided a lot of. First of all, it gave some closure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, like I very much got the sense from Firefly that even the last episode, like, they didn't know that was going to be the last episode. It was a regular episode.
Yeah.
It wasn't a finale. There was nothing. It very much felt like this was a very unfinished show.
Yep.
And Serenity came along, and I don't want to say that it definitely finished it, but it did give like a little bit of closure with the storyline and things like that. It answered a lot of questions that you didn't get in the show.
Sure.
The funny thing is I was talking to Patrick about it, and I never thought about it, but like he said he started watching the movie Serenity, right? And then you didn't understand anything. Because I feel like if you didn't watch the show and you just dive right into the movie, there's so many things that don't make any sense at all. Like,
wait,
you have no clue
Patrick,
what's going on.
You watched Serenity first?
Yes. I had no idea. I heard, so when Serenity came out, everyone's like, go see Serenity. I'm like, all right, I'll go see it. And then like 15 minutes in, I'm like, what is going on? I have no idea what is happening. And they're like, yeah, have you seen Firefly? You should go see Firefly first. I'm like, okay, all right.
Yeah, so if I hadn't watched the show, I would not have had a clue what was going on in that movie. There are so many things, like it's just this random crew. All of a sudden, you're just following their story. Like you have no backstory at all. But the movie did a good job. Like it was. I thought it was really good. Like I'd actually like to go back and watch it, just because I've only seen it the one time.
Sure.
And there's always so many things that you pick up like on your second time through. But I really enjoyed the series. Really enjoyed the movie. If you're a little bit of a nerd, maybe a little bit of a sci-fi nerd, like I would totally recommend this show and movie.
Sure.
I love that stuff. Like I've always been a big Star Wars fan, and not that it's exactly like Star Wars. It's like Star Wars if it were a Western.
Yep.
Kind of.
Yep. Exactly.
It's like a space Western. It's hard to explain. Like there's nothing like it, I feel like.
Sure.
But it was great. I was super happy to finish that. Like I'm glad that I got turned on to that show. And now I think we are going to transition into actually watching the Marvel movies in order.
Nice.
So so going back there, I have the list actually saved on my phone now. I think the first one is Captain America, the first Captain America movie.
Are you watching it chronologically or like in the order that they came out?
No, the like universe order.
Okay.
Like the Marvel universe order.
So in order of like years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and I kind of looked along the list there to see what was, what the order was and things like that. And it looks like the first one was like Captain America. I think I have it actually saved. But the Iron Man movies are pretty far up front.
Yeah.
So I will end up rewatching those, which I really love those movies. So I won't be too upset about having to go back and see those.
Yeah.
But no, I think it'll be cool kind of watching it in order. So it is Captain America, the First Avenger, it shows. And then the second one is Captain Marvel, which was like one of the newer ones that I saw in theaters. So, but it'll be cool to go back and watch that. I think a lot of things will make more sense in that now that I've watched a few movies. Because when I watched Captain Marvel, I hadn't seen very many, and a lot of that stuff didn't make any sense to me at all.
Oh yeah.
So I think we're gonna transition to that way. Number one of my New Year's resolution will be completed, and number two, I have really fell in love with the Marvel movies that I've seen. The Iron Man movies, I really love those. Like I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I really liked Black Panther.
Yeah.
And I reading like Black Panther and reading what it was going to be about, I actually didn't think that I was going to like it that much, and I really liked the movie. Like it was really cool.
Sure.
Sweet.
So I think that'll be that way with a lot of stuff. I love Doctor Strange. Like I can't wait to get back and watch that.
Yep.
But so I'm going to start getting into those. And lastly, for my update. No, not lastly. Two more things.
Okay.
JK.
So I know you guys met my girlfriend, Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
We've been dating for some time now, and I asked her to move in with me. And she said yes.
Ooh. Oh.
So it's over the past few weeks, we've kind of been doing a slow move-in type thing. And I think she's got a couple months left on her apartment lease, so it's not a rush, which is really nice. I have an inside cat now, which is weird.
So how does the inside cat interact with the other cat?
Well, they don't know each other exist yet.
Oh,
I'd like to keep it that way for a little longer, I think.
Okay.
So the cat and the inside cat, her name is Alita, and Alita
Battle
knows
Angel.
the other cats exist because she watches them out the window.
Nice.
But they don't know she exists. They don't know that there is a cat inside. So one thing that is funny about all of it is I've never had an inside cat in my life. And I know cats are weird, but I don't think I was prepared for all the weird cat stuff. Like cats are the most
Weird
bizarre
cat stuff.
They're just bizarre. Like cats, and everything they do is weird. She sleeps all the time, but she's most active in the middle of the night. And it's a combination of a couple things. So I have all hardwood floors, so I can hear her just like a little herd of elephants out there when she runs.
Just running around.
Just running amok out there. And it's a combination of a couple things. Like One, like, she just, cats, for the most part, they don't sleep for 8 solid hours. They sleep for a couple hours at a time, wake up for an hour, and then sleep for a couple hours again. But she's also never had as much space to run. So she went from an apartment to my house, which is pretty open. And I think she's like loving life, like running just back and forth, like from one end to the other. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, she just recently started to try and she likes to sleep like in between like my legs or like right behind me, like up against me. She's figured out that I'm like normally like very warm. And like for me, it's awful because I'm always like burning up. Like I'm one of those people that can barely use a comforter, like because I'm always like dying. So I sleep with a fan on, and if I have any blanket on me, usually it's like a sheet, So her sleeping on me, like she's figured out that I'm warm, and I'm like trying to like maneuver and like kind of throw her off a little bit. I woke up one night. She was standing on me. I was laying on my side. She's standing on my shoulder, like 2 inches away from my face, just staring at me when I woke up. I was like, "Hey, what?
Can I help you?
What are you doing?" So I've just never been like I've never had those like weird cat things happen, right? So I'm still getting used to the weird cat stuff. But other than that, it's going really well. We got obviously a lot of stuff. Like it's a very different process. Like I have to reorganize, kind of all of my stuff because it was just me living here, and like you guys were in the house. Like the house generally pretty empty. I didn't need a bunch of stuff, and I just kind of had it set up obviously for just me. So I'm kind of trying to shuffle things and kind of trying to move things to where it makes sense. So it's definitely a process, but it is exciting. It's definitely an exciting thing. She's really cool.
Yeah.
And other than that, lastly, it was Patrick's birthday this past week.
Yes.
Yes, it
and
was.
He asked me to do something.
Yes.
And
to
that's
host the
something.
podcast.
No, you told me I was supposed to do that. You didn't ask.
There was
You told
no
me I was
option for
hosting.
that.
You didn't ask me to host. You just said, "Oh yeah, you're hosting the podcast." I'm like, "All right." I was like, "I don't have to be prepared or anything, right?" No, he asked me to watch Superman. Now I'm not gonna lie, I pretty much never had any anticipation on watching this. If you guys haven't figured that out yet, you have not been listening long enough. Because I was totally diving, like just ducking and just trying to slip and slide out of that because I did not want to do it. And he asked me to watch it. So I watched it. Kind of.
Kind of.
What does that mean?
What does that mean?
I made it through the first hour and a half of the movie.
Okay.
2 things. I started watching it late last night. And I started to doze off at about the hour and a half mark. And the second part of it, well, wait a minute. I shouldn't even get into this. That's our topic. Everybody, transition. That's our topic. And we're back with our topic. It's Superman.
What a transition.
Woo!
That was a ninja move. I did not see that transition coming.
Me neither. I felt like I was getting funny looks from Patrick. Like, oh no, yep, he's right. That's the topic.
So, before we continue, Patrick, I think you can help out with this a little bit. So we got a voicemail from a certain West Virginian mountaineer.
We did. Jungle
Yes.
Cat.
Yeah. He's hanging out in the Amazon right now. That's why he's not on the podcast. But he decided to call in to the GMG hotline and had a few things to say.
Good morning, my brothers and sisters, on this episode where I'm not present. Hey, I'm about to get on a
He totally didn't know the
24-hour boat
episode
trip
number.
to the jungle along the Amazon River, and I cannot be more excited. I will say, though, I'm going to miss you guys as I go into the deep jungles of Brazil. Hope everything's going well. Hope the topic of Superman brings about a lively discussion, and so help me, if on the only the second episode I've ever missed, if Ronnie, if you actually watch Superman and I'm not there to celebrate with you, oh man, you have some splaining to do, my friend. Some splaining to do. You think I'm fooling around? I'm serious. Next time I'm on there, buddy, I'm watching you. But if you haven't watched Superman for the 41st time, 41st week in a row of not watching Superman, how do you feel about it? All right. Love you guys. God bless you guys. Talk to you later. Ciao.
So you have some splaining to do. You have about an hour and a half of splaining to do.
I do have some. I feel like, honestly, I was like, maybe I'll go back and watch it like today when I get home from work, but
you didn't.
Here's the thing, because there's a thing, and that is, I hated it.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
Bum, 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 bum.
All right.
I am not
So
putting
why?
down anybody that likes Superman here when I just say it's not for me. I knew going in that I had little interest for the superhero Superman. And there's a reason for that. Number one, I don't like that he just has like every power in the world. Seems just like ridiculous. Like, let's just give this guy every single possible power and just throw him out there. Yeah, of course he's going to be super. Like, he does. I mean, it's hard to believe that he even struggles with anything ever. I mean, for some apparent reason, like kryptonite is just readily available to every single enemy that he's ever had, but that I haven't figured out yet. But that's his one weakness. Other than that, he's going to murder you. There's nothing you can do about it.
So the reason why he has all the powers is he is sent from another world to save humanity.
Yes, the crystal world.
And yeah, the crystal world. So let's talk about what you hated about this movie.
Let's break it down.
Let's break it down.
From the very beginning.
So the very beginning, when they're on Krypton, and Jor-El is talking to the council about General Zod and his lackeys about their coup that they put together. So what was that scene like for you when you were watching that?
First of all, I felt like this movie totally threw me into a world I had no idea about anything. And that all of a sudden, these three people are on trial and there's a bunch of floating Wizard of Oz heads. And they get to decide this guy's fate, basically.
Let me tell you what
is his fate? It's a rotating mirror floppy disk that just comes from the middle of nowhere and traps him like for eternity.
It's the Phantom Zone.
It's the Phantom Zone.
The floppy disk zone.
I will never look at that the same way.
I was so
ever
confused
again.
at the beginning because I was thinking like, man, I feel like I need to know more about this world. Like,
So-
it just kind of it just kind of throws you in, like if you don't know anything.
So that's all basically one big setup. That whole thing is a setup technically for the second movie, which I believe, I can't remember if it was filmed that way. Originally, Superman was meant to be a two-parter, like it was supposed to be filmed together. I don't remember if they did that or not. But Zod and Ursa, and I can't remember what the big dude's name was. They come back again in Superman 2.
Yeah, that's what I gathered. I was talking to Patrick a little bit about it, because other than the second movie, that has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way movies are nowadays is they give you a backstory. They give you some knowledge so the rest of the movie makes sense. Whereas this 1978 Superman movie, they assumed you already know the characters, which is nowadays a very bad move in movies. If you assume people already know what's going on.
I feel like when it came out, that probably was the case. there obviously was maybe just like less superheroes, less media, there was less everything. So it was more likely that people probably did know all the backstory and know like these characters and things. For me, I just like I don't know if it was when I guess as a kid, like Superman was never appealing. And I think really like when I was a kid also like Superman was never like, that was never one of those like media things that was like pushed on kids. You know what I mean? Like for me growing up, like in the 90s as a 90s kid, like man, it was all Batman. It was all Batman. Movies were coming out. There's action figures. They're in every commercial. But Superman, it just wasn't.
Yeah, they hadn't made a Superman movie in quite a while, but that's because, Superman 4. But we won't talk about that. Yeah, at that point, like in the 90s, like Batman was having his time in the sun for movies and stuff. So Superman had long been kind of pushed back, at least in the movie sphere. In comics, he was doing very well. The 90s brought about actually, now that I'm thinking about it, one of our questions from the community, and I am totally stalling for time right now. Still stalling. There you go. Okay, I got it. So Duncan Rogers on the Facebook page, he wrote, "What is the best Superman comic written in your opinion?" He says, "Mine is Red Sun." If you're not familiar with Red Sun, is what if Superman landed in Russia instead of in Kansas? And he grew up in the Soviet Union, basically. So Red Sun, the alternate story, I thought was awesome. What movie was the best depiction of Superman? So, and you guys can certainly chime in on this question. I think,
Ronnie, you go first.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you guys go first. I'll go last.
So my point was the mid '90s, early to mid '90s. The death of Superman storyline was actually out there, and you would kind of shake your head like, "What, really? The best Superman story being the death of Superman?" Well, it was a big deal.
Sure.
That they were gonna kill off such an iconic character like Superman. Now, of course, he didn't stay dead very long. Spoilers. But
neither did his father, apparently.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a given. But yeah, I mean, it was a huge storyline in the 90s, and I think that's probably one of the best runs they had, introducing. I think that was the introduction of Doomsday. There we go. I almost said Darkseid. Wrong character. Doomsday. Superman's death, and then you have all these Superman imposters that are basically trying to step in a world without Superman. And so it was interesting to see that storyline. So that, I'd say, was probably one of the best storylines I've ever seen. Patrick, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. There was this compendium that came out called American Alien.
Okay.
And this was written by Max Landis, and it was like 5 different stories of Superman, and it was more on his relationships, more of like growing bonds with certain people, what he did when his cape was off, or what he thought about after he had stopped a crime or said hi to a boy who was like really enthralled with Superman. And him just going back to his apartment, like what he did when he wasn't Superman, and when he wasn't like the journalist that Clark Kent is. It was really cool because it was a fresh take on Clark Kent and Superman, because you get more of like the human side of him rather than this big all-powerful superhero saving things all the time.
Sure.
So I really, really enjoyed that. And I'm not a comic book reader, so I've read very few comics in my life. But I heard that this one was just like an alternate take. It wasn't just the same, like, hey, he's Superman, he's going to fight a villain, he's going to win, and that's the end of the story. This was cool because it was five short stories just about, particular times in his life that he struggled with. So it was really, really cool. That was probably my favorite version of Superman.
Sure.
In comics.
Now, who was your favorite, and before we go back to discussion on the movie, who was your favorite Superman, the actor who played Superman? Who would you say is your favorite?
Oh, man, it's a toss-up between Christopher Reeve and Tom Welling. I learned more about the lore and universe within Superman from watching the show Smallville. Mm-hmm. And so I really enjoyed the Tom Welling version. But I mean, like, just looking when someone says Superman, the first thing that comes to my mind is Christopher Reeve Superman. He just embodies the look of Superman in every single way for me.
Yeah. It's too bad Tom Welling wasn't. He was only in the Superman suit for like 5 seconds.
I know. It's like every season I'm like, when are you gonna fly?
Yep.
When are you gonna fly? Oh, we got the black kryptonite. Now you can fly. And then he doesn't even remember that he flew. I'm like, no, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, they stretched that out. I mean, a lot of it was really good. A lot of what Smallville did was awesome, taking their own take on different aspects of that universe.
Yeah.
But that was the one frustrating thing, was like you kind of saw him in like a combined total of like 12 seconds of the final episode of the show. Which I
but
get.
That was just like that was
Okay.
the perfect ending to the show, though.
Sure.
I mean, in reality, I mean that the whole like allure of the show was him as Clark Kent, not really as a red blue blur or as Superman. So
yeah,
it was okay. There was a lot of good parts, but there were some duds of a seasons in that show.
Sure. Yeah, for me, it's a toss-up between the big ones that we've had in terms of the cinematic universe, between Christopher Reeve as the iconic 70s, which, granted, Superman the movie is not perfect. They did what they could in the 70s.
You watch your mouth.
Heresy. But it's not perfect for sure. But Christopher Reeve is just like one of the iconic actors in that movie. Obviously, playing the title role, he is Superman. He gets the the big blue Boy Scout routine down.
Yeah, he does.
And he looked like Superman.
I will say, after watching that movie, I cannot imagine anybody else. I guess like topping like the look, like the look and the personality and like everything. Just him standing there in the suit with his hair, like it's like shining. Like, I mean, I can't imagine anybody actually looking more like Superman.
I will say a close second is Henry Cavill. I really enjoyed Henry Cavill's take on Superman. He's been really, really coy about whether or not he is Superman anymore. He pretty much won't say. It's like a willy won't-he kind of thing, kind of like how they were with Ben Affleck. But he's not really confirmed anything. So who knows where he's at with that. But I really enjoyed the Man of Steel version of Superman. Granted, there was a lot of existential stuff going on that they decided to do with the script, but I just really liked his version of Superman.
Also, I've never read a comic book in my entire life, not even one. And never being a fan of Superman, I feel like there's not a possible answer I could give to that question.
It's all good. Makes sense.
All right.
So Tim Paullin actually writes here on the Discord. He writes, Christopher Reeve is the best Superman. although there hasn't been a horrible one, unlike Batman. Looking at you, George and Val, and that's valid. I accept that.
Man, I kind of liked Clooney. I don't know.
I
I
just
don't know if
can't.
Clooney's like the nostalgia thing because I was a kid when the movies and stuff, but I thought Clooney was pretty good, personally.
See, my opinion is he was never really Batman. He was George Clooney in a bat suit. He never really took on Batman, to be honest. And honestly, that version of Batman is super campy. But that's my opinion. And back then, when I was a kid, like you, Ronnie, I loved it because I was a kid and I loved Batman. But in any case, this is not about Batman. So the other question that Tim brings up is, and Ronnie, you kind of touched on this, is my question is, how is kryptonite so readily available to every supervillain? So let's go right back into to discussion on Superman.
A couple things, I think. So again, I think the reason there are a couple reasons for my opinion on this movie, and it's not necessarily to tear it down. Number one, it was made in 1976. I watched it in 2019, basically just after watching Endgame, and that's the brand of superhero movies that I've come to know and be familiar with. So that difference, that gap is huge in movies.
Mm-hmm.
And it is hard to it's hard to watch a movie on something that you're not necessarily interested in that doesn't like grab you. You know what I mean? It was that, and it was a combination of them, I guess, kind of expecting the viewer to know information before they saw the movie.
Sure.
So a combination of those two things made the movie not pleasurable for me to watch. The first thing, there was a couple of really funny things. So it starts off on Krypton, and it's this 70s crystal castle. The actual, as far as the movie survives, I believe, on nostalgia and the love for Superman. It does not survive on its cinematography. And I guess watching it from the very beginning, I was like, oh man, this is rough. Like, this is not this is not even what I had anticipated.
I try to look at all that basically saying, like, this is the best they could do with what they had at the time.
Is it, though?
Is it?
Is it? Go ahead and tell me.
When you compare...
say what you said to me earlier.
When you compare Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, which came around the same time and was made at the same time this movie was made, and the stark differences between the special effects is uncanny.
You know what's funny too is I thought that Star Wars had like almost no budget. Like that initial movie, there was like very little budget for that actual movie.
I will say this though. All the recent, like anytime you've watched the original Star Wars, A New Hope, you've watched it in recent years, right? You've watched it on VHS, the special editions and stuff like that.
For sure.
Have you seen the original version of Star Wars without the special edition effects? It's you can't find that right now. But I mean, there's some footage of it out there, but it's rough. They've cleaned it up over the years. And so while it looks, obviously it's for its time still, they've cleaned it up significantly. So I think if you took a look at Star Wars, the original cut, and then looked at Superman 78, it wouldn't be as much of a stark difference.
That's fair.
Yeah. I hadn't considered that there had been that many, like there had been changes or updates like that. I mean, it makes sense that there would be, but so jumping into it, it was kind of hard to jump into. Just that, I guess, jumping into 1976 and the special effects they had at the time was really tough. Just to dive in, especially to something you aren't like. I've never really been interested in Superman.
Sure.
But they started on Krypton with all the crystals and stuff like that. It was very confusing. It was a confusing start. From the very beginning for me. They start on Krypton. They're basically banishing these 3 people. And they have this council. And for some reason, all their outfits are glowing. But I think that it really comes down to like they expected people to know, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know at the beginning. I still don't know. They all had different emblems on the front of their uniforms, of their outfits. I have no clue why they all had different outfits, like different emblems.
Did you want to take that, Pat?
Yeah, there's so the S for Superman stands for the House of L. It's their family crest. So every other person has their own crest.
And I don't think they touched on that in the movie, did they?
No, they did not. They didn't.
Talk so about everybody just had a different emblem, and that was at the very beginning. I was like, obviously, this guy has something to do with Superman because I've seen that emblem, but everybody just has something different.
Sure. Yeah, that's the House of L crest.
They start with the trial, and that was confusing. The whole banishing them to that whatever was just confusing. And the special effects, I will say, it totally threw me off. It threw me off at a couple different points. Like that part where this mirror just comes out of nowhere, and then there's this just bang, and then they're in the mirror floating off. It was bizarre. The next part that got me was when he is running alongside the train. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Pat and I discussed this a little bit earlier today in person, and I think you hit you hit the nail right on the head when you said it's like his legs were just dragging his torso. It was a bizarre thing. It was he had the bottom half of an ostrich, and it was just such a bizarre scene that didn't look natural. It looked so unnatural, and I was like, wow, I can't. This is so hard to stay focused in and not pay attention to that.
Yeah, I was watching it with my wife, and she was like, his feet are not even touching the ground.
His feet were way out in front of his body. It was the most bizarre. It's
what you would look like when you're hanging in midair and trying to run.
It looked like he was running, but trying to take really long strides with his body leaned back. It's like his legs were somebody just put different legs on him, and they were just running amok with his body, and he had no control. So it was hard to say that, but then they obviously went from him being a baby to I don't know, maybe 4 years old, 3 or 4 years old when they found him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he was 3.
Yeah, so they went from a baby, and then my first question, I was like, wait a minute, he's just been floating for 3 years? He's just been floating in this crystal ball thing for 3 years? And then I was like, it was funny because the whole time he's in this pod of some kind, the dad's voice is coming through, and I was like, is he actually learning anything? Because he's a little kid. Little kids, they don't really pick up on stuff. So I was I was confused by that. And then he reaches Earth years later, apparently, or he just grew at a rapid pace. I did not know which one it was, actually. I didn't know if he grew faster than a normal human being, or if he had been traveling through space for years. They never really specified.
Yeah, I think he traveled through space in years.
Yeah, so I never really specified. It just never did that. Well, so then it jumps from him being 3 or 4 years old to teenager in high school. And that's when the train thing happened. He ran home or whatever. That's all fine. He was talking to his dad. I kind of got the impression, they didn't specify it exactly, but I got the impression that his parents probably didn't want him to play football or something, or any sports with his powers.
Yeah,
and that's why he didn't play.
Yeah, they said his powers are not for football. They're
he had
for
powers
something
for
greater.
For something greater. Right. And then his Earth father passes away. And then so the next part was it was very bizarre for me too, just because there wasn't really an explanation. So His mother wakes up. She's calling for him to wake up or whatever. And she looks out the window and he's standing out in the middle of the field, like way out in the middle of this field. So she walks all the way out there, which is like a mile. But she walks all the way out there and he just says that he's got to leave. And she just automatically accepts, yep, we knew this was coming. And she says, where are you headed? And he says, north. And I was like, what does that even mean? Why is he headed north? Because the night before he found that like green crystal in like the barn, and I didn't know what the green crystal meant. I just assumed. I was like waiting to see what happened. So then it cuts from the farm to him in the Arctic, like just climbing across like the ice and stuff. So it was a very bizarre like jumping from thing to thing, and I was like, I'm thinking to myself, man, am I missing like information? Like, because I can't, it's hard for me to follow. I don't know how this is happening. Like, they're just jumping from thing to thing. All of a sudden, he has to go north, which makes no sense. Because I'm thinking to myself, well, north's not going to help you. It was a completely different planet that you grew up on. Like, what is north going to do for you? And so he gets to this, he's somewhere in like the Arctic where there's no life. And he's got this crystal. He pulls it out. And I was thinking, okay, something's going to happen with this crystal. Nope, nothing happens. He just launches it out into the water, which to me, I was like, did he just know that he just needed to throw this thing? That's what it was. Like, that's the big mystery. Like, so he just throws it and automatically Crystal Castle appears. Like, it just builds itself right there. This Fortress of Solitude or whatever.
Yeah.
So he does that and then he moves the crystal around a little bit and his dad comes up like Wizard of Oz style. Really, the only thing I could think of was that all these
literally
big
what
heads,
my wife said.
All these big heads are just like the Wizard of Oz. This is the same exact scenario. So then his dad comes up and he's like, "Come, like, let me show you this or whatever." So before this, he knew that he was really strong. He knew that he could run really fast, and I don't know what else he knew. It didn't really explain what else he knew as like a teenager. So then he goes. And I guess like somewhere in the universe with his dad, and he comes back, and bam,
he's just in the Fortress of Solitude for 12 years.
Yeah, so
learning.
then it's like then it jumps again, and it's bam, he's complete Superman. He's got a suit, he knows how to fly, all of it. He just automatically is Superman. And I was like, okay, like what just happened that he knew? You know what I mean? Like. It made a very big jump, and there wasn't an explanation for me to like, as somebody who doesn't know anything, it was hard to like follow that jump. And then he flies out of this Fortress of Solitude as Superman. You're like, okay, he learned how to fly. He's got a suit now. I don't know where that came from, but he's got it. Like, pretty sure that wasn't lying around in the Arctic anywhere. And then it jumps again. And then all of a sudden, he's Clark Kent. He's in a big city. Like this kid that grew up in the middle of nowhere, all of a sudden, fastest typer in the world. Like, big city. Like, what just happened? Like, it just jumped so far with no information for somebody who doesn't know anything. So it's so hard for me to follow this. But I think, like you said earlier, it is very much like in the 70s, like there was probably an expectation of people having already a certain knowledge of Superman. So it made more sense to them. For somebody like me who doesn't know anything about anything, it made it really hard to follow.
Yeah, by then they had the the serials that they had in the movie theaters, as well as the 50s television show. So I think at that point, Superman people were somewhat familiar with who he was, and I mean, people are obviously familiar with him now, but I think it was still a little bit more in the culture at that point generally. But
yeah, and it makes sense now. But when I was watching the movie, that part did not cross my mind. I was like, man, this movie's jumping around and it's hard for me to follow. Like, I don't understand how any of this stuff happened.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there wasn't a lot of detail. And like, I think in today's like day and age, like that movie would have been made into more than one movie.
Yeah.
And there would be more detail. Like there would be an origin story where everything was more or less explained.
Sure. Yeah, I think the crazy thing about it is the guy who wrote the story for this movie, his name is Mario Puzo. He wrote The Godfather.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he wrote The Godfather and then he wrote Superman. So it's interesting. Well, I could follow it, but I had knowledge of it. I can see your points where it kind of makes big jumps and big concessions about it. So that was just kind of crazy to me.
Well, and one thing that I guess from the beginning is I still don't know the answer to this. I don't know if like when he sends his son off the planet Krypton because it's going to be destroyed, did he just then give him all of those powers, or do people from that planet have those powers already?
Yeah, so they when on Krypton they don't have the powers, but because of Earth's atmosphere, Kal-El and any Kryptonian, they have denser molecular structure to allow them to become invulnerable. They have there's another thing where the gravity does not affect them the way it does to humans, which allows him to be able to fly. What other things were there? Those are the two big things I think were because of the way that they are made on Krypton allows them to have all these superpowers because of Earth's atmosphere on Earth.
True. Yeah, I was thinking to myself when I was watching the movie that because they make mention of him using like all this energy or something like that on Krypton. Like they are aware he's doing something that he shouldn't be doing. Like Superman's actual dad. And I'm horrible with names, by the way.
Yeah.
But I thought that he was giving him all of those powers and then sending him away with all the powers.
No, when he was putting Kal-El in the pod, he was talking to his wife, and he's like, she says he's gonna be like an outcast, and he's like, well, he's gonna have all these powers because of his the denseness of his makeup.
And he said he'll look like them still.
Yeah, he'll still look like them. He just will have a lot of powers.
No, basically when he was being sent off in the pod, he was being given the vast wealth of knowledge that his father had. And so that was his parting gift, basically, from Jor-El. Jor-El is his father. From Jor-El to Kal-El.
But my question is, because I thought that he was like... I know as he was like... as Jor-El was like walking around saying he's giving him this knowledge, like he mentioned that he's giving him everything that he knows, like that he has learned and all this stuff. But then it felt like he gave him all the knowledge, and I was like, okay, is he automatically going to like just get this knowledge like right away, or is he going to have to learn it over time? And I thought that it meant that he would know that knowledge like by the time he reached Earth. I guess like when I was watching the movie, and it seemed very much like he did not know what he was or where he came from until like the Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, he didn't give him everything, I guess, because he knew that by the time, he became, like you said, so you're now 18 years old. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Mm-hmm. And there are certain things he waited for that appointed time to sort of fill in the rest. So that's the impression I got, at least.
I think if you can think of it as the journey to Earth was more of like the Cliff's Notes to all the things that he had, the knowledge he was going to give him. And then once he created the Fortress of Solitude, I mean, like that was 12 years of learning about Krypton, learning about his powers, learning how to be good, and things like that.
So when he initially got to the Fortress of Solitude, like Jor-El comes out, he's the big face guy, and
Marlon Brando.
Yeah, so Marlon Brando, he's got the
from
big
the
face.
planet Krypton,
and Superman goes away, and it had been 12 years.
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
Yes,
before he then flew
years.
out as a cope, with a cape and everything in the suit.
Yes,
correct.
Okay,
yeah.
I don't know if it mentioned that because I will say like I said I watched an hour and a half. That is true. Like I think when I actually stopped the recording, it was an hour and 48 minutes in, but I had been dozing off. So I don't know if it
Yeah.
made mention of the 12 years. It seemed.
I believe it did.
Did
Yeah.
it?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, and he talks about, Jor-El talks about, like, you're only 18 years old, but for Jor-El, he had already been dead at that point for thousands of years.
Yeah, like in
So-
their own time. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so time passes a lot differently
Yeah.
for them than it does Earthlings. So he took him off on basically what I perceive as like this spiritual journey, teaching him about his powers. And he talks about step away from the bonds of your earthly nature or whatever, or your earthly, what you've learned, and basically step into your heritage. And when he does that, he kind of gets taken away. But when he returns, 12 years have passed.
Yeah.
So
Why? I got a question. So why did nobody believe Jor-El that the planet was going to be destroyed?
that's a great question.
They didn't. I mean, they didn't believe him, and it was clearly like it was like a huge fireball, like encroaching, like getting closer and closer to their planet. But yet nobody like wanted to believe that was going to happen, or that was really confusing. I'm thinking like, man, all they got to do is just look outside. Like there's this giant sun that's about to like collide with their planet. Like I don't understand. And then I was thinking like while you guys were describing like the density thing, like their molecular structure being different, and basically when they come to Earth, they're like a god. Like they're just impenetrable. They could do whatever they want. And I'm thinking, okay, how come they all don't live on Earth then? That doesn't make any sense. Like they live on the planet where they don't have any powers?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good
Right?
point.
Raising some questions here. I don't
Seems
have
like they
the
would all want
answers.
to go to this planet. We could just rule this entire planet. Nobody could do anything.
I guess they didn't all have pods like Jor-El did. I don't know.
But no, I think ultimately, like it was a combination of those things that made me not necessarily enjoy the movie. Just
So
if it was like, I think if it was a more like present version, and some of those things could be like overcome, maybe with a little more like detail. Because I mean, we live in a world where we just want the information easily, and that is not the world that movie was made in. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
people read comic books more back then, and people knew more information about the movie then. But now, like going back and watching it, like I knew nothing about Superman, and it was so hard to follow.
So let's switch gears a little bit then. So what about the movie did you enjoy? Did you like? I mean, there's got to be something in there that was enjoyable, but like the score from John Williams. Like how did you react to that?
Well, there were a few things in the movie that I liked. So I will say the first thing was, and I messaged you guys like, wait a minute, Gene Hackman's in this movie? you guys didn't tell me this. I might have watched it earlier. But anyways, I like sci-fi stuff. Like I like that, and I thought the whole planet of Krypton, even though the like cinematography and stuff was old and outdated and was hard, it was harder to view that, but the whole idea of it was cool, right? It's in space. It's this other planet. It's a completely different set of just everything. I thought it was kind of cool. It was hard to follow because I didn't have any back knowledge of any of it. So it made it hard, but I thought the whole idea was cool of having this other planet that he's from. The planet's going to explode. They're going to send him off to this other planet. That I thought was cool. Even when he landed and they found him, like he lifts up the truck like immediately with a flat tire.
Yeah.
It was kind of cool. It was like kind of a cool thing. Like they're totally like astonished by this whole thing. And it was kind of cool. Like that whole part. And even like the idea of him, like the whole train, him running fast in the train thing, that was terrible just to watch. But the idea of him having to stay after and clean up all that stuff. And then as they drive by, he's already standing there, like kind of with a smirk on his face. They're like, how'd you get here so fast? And he's like, I ran. Like that part was kind of cool, right? It was just kind of like a cool little thing built in. So, I mean, there was a lot of cool things about the movie. But I like in general, like him saving Lois Lane for the first time, like the helicopter thing. He's like, I got you. And she's like, well, who's got you? Like just that whole, like, it was kind of cool, like how they did that. But yeah, there were so many more questions that it like just kind of eclipsed a lot of enjoyment, I think.
Sure. Yeah, I get that.
So, and one of the funny things that I like, the funniest thing is, so Gene Hackman was Lex Luthor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm watching this and I'm like, they first go to like Gene Hackman and he is in this like underground subway layer of some kind where he lives. And I was like, wait a minute. I was like, he's Lex Luthor, but his whole idea is a real estate scam. I was like, is this for real? Superman is just stopping a real estate scam in the first movie? Like, what? So that part was so confusing. And now I talked to Patrick today and he like did some explaining as far as the whole idea, with like the nuclear missiles and stuff like that. And we actually watched like one of the final scenes where he like shoots off and reverses the like the world. But yeah, it was confusing. He's like talking about this like prime real estate and stuff. And I'm like, what is this guy like? So Lex Luthor is Lex Luthor from Krypton or is
No.
He's a normal human being?
He's just a businessman.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So he's just this evil businessman. That makes sense.
Yep.
Typically he's portrayed as a very, very smart individual, very cunning individual, very rich individual. He comes from money. And yeah, he has a lot of nefarious, plots, and especially he gets threatened when Superman shows up on the scene.
Yeah.
Because he has this genuine hatred for this person, and the fact that he feels threatened from being able to carry out a lot of the plots that he wants to pursue with having this being from another world that has superpowers. And they play on this in Superman the movie. Just the fact that he has to get Superman out of the way to be able to, pull off his so-called master plan.
Real estate scam, as Ronnie puts it.
That's what it is, really, right?
But how many real estate scams blow up the San Andreas Fault?
I mean, not many of them include nuclear weapons, I would assume.
Yeah.
But no, it starts off with him like talking about real estate, and I was like, "Is this for real?" So yeah, it just caught me off guard that I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, I will say this, and then we've got some more questions here. I will say this, like, it's not, given where we are in current superhero movies, it, unfortunately, there's a lot of things about Superman that don't hold up in terms of storytelling and the superhero genre. But I respect it because, number one, Christopher Reeve is such an iconic, it's such an iconic portrayal as Superman. And it paved the way for other superhero movies to get better. If it was not for Superman, the first Superman, Batman wouldn't have been made. The 89 Batman. It showed movie studios that you could make a halfway decent superhero movie. And at the time, this movie was a big deal. Now, do a lot of the effects and stuff hold up? No. But it paved the way. And so that's the way I look at this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Ronnie, you've watched an hour and a half-ish.
Mm-hmm.
What would you rate this movie?
I feel like it's not fair for me to rate it, to be honest.
So are you going to watch the last hour of it?
No.
So, for the 41st week...
If you have another birthday come around, maybe.
All right,
2020.
20.
For your birthday, I will watch the last hour.
Oh, gosh.
You're going to not remember anything.
I was confused the whole time
Which is
anyway.
par for the course for the start of this movie.
It's just totally right on track.
So, Travis Popsicle on the Discord He asks, what is your favorite Superman villain from comics or movies? I really like Superman 2 with General Zod. See, we told you he comes back. And his fellow criminals. Kneel before Zod! As a kid, this was a much more exciting film than the first one. Superman was probably the first superhero that I paid attention to when I was a kid. I was born in 1973, so these movies released at a prime age for me. I tried to fly by jumping off the swing in my backyard when it was at its peak. I'm sure everyone at one point or another has pretended to be Superman at some point, trying to jump off tables and stuff. I know I did when I was a kid.
I still do that.
Yeah, he's doing it right now. But favorite Superman villain? I feel like Lex Luthor is a given. He's kind of like...
Don't pick him. Pick someone else, because that's just...
Brainiac.
Brainiac's good.
Yeah.
Brainiac's a good one. I would say Batman.
Oh! Shots fired.
I think Batman is the biggest villain, only because, Batman always keeps a close eye on Superman. Yeah. Always. When they created the Justice League, he created the Justice League so he could have a closer eye on Superman.
Yeah.
Brainiac, Lex Luthor, Darkseid, but I think Batman was probably the biggest. I think I would like him as the biggest villain. They were the biggest enemies until they realized that both their mothers were named Martha.
Oh, let's not go into that. Let's not open up that wound again.
Oh, what a way to ruin a movie.
Why did you say that name? But yeah, definitely Brainiac for me, just because he has this intellect on this whole literally otherworldly level, where Lex Luthor, he's a very brilliant man, very cunning man on Earth. Brainiac is just whole other level.
Whole nother level.
Yeah. So, Ronnie, I know your knowledge of that is very limited. So
I was going to go with Gene Hackman.
There you go. Otis.
Not Lex Luthor, just Gene Hackman.
Just Gene Hackman in general.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Travis. I know Hayley Zor posted, y'all need to include Tom Welling in your discussion, and we did.
We did, yes.
So, hopefully, I'm hoping they somehow bring him back for the Arrowverse, like the Crisis on Infinite Earths events.
I would love for him to come back and reprise his role somehow.
I don't know if you saw it in the news at all, but another actor who has played Superman is also reprising his role in a different way.
Ben Affleck?
No. No, Brandon Routh is actually reprising his role as Superman, but it's a different version of Superman. There was a storyline called Kingdom Come, and I believe it was at least illustrated. I don't remember if it was written. It may have been, but illustrated by a guy named Alex Ross. His style of illustration in comic books is hyper realistic and old school at the same time. I'll have to send you some of the stuff, but it's a particular sort of hardened version of Superman that has been through a lot of stuff, and so they are going to be portraying him in the Arrowverse crossover.
Cool.
So, but yeah. So, of course, we did include Tom Welling. And then Arctic M77, a.k.a. Matt, on the Discord. He writes, Superman as a topic must be the Birthday Boys topic pick. Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was.
I hope Ronnie is engineering this locomotive to be faster than a speeding bullet to get this topic over with. And I would say yes. Yes, he did that.
Love them.
What can I say about the Man of Steel? He was the first superhero that I ever knew about. I remember watching Superman 1 and 2, and even going to see 3 in the theaters when I was 6 years old. Dressing up as the last son of Krypton for Halloween was always fun with the 80s plastic face mold mask. Yep, I love those. That had a rubber band to hold it on your head with those very generous slots to breathe out of. Mm-hmm. I feel Kal-El was a great first superhero for kids to learn and understand how superhero powers work. I feel the Kryptonian is a little OP in that his only weakness is his home planet and magic. Just saying. But hey, he was made for kids to understand. I enjoyed the red-blue blur growing up in the 90s with Lois and Clark and Smallville in 2000s on TV. What else can I say about this Boy Scout? He reminds me of my childhood, and I hope sometime there will be a decent video game to play as him. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Yes.
Somebody
needs to crack that code. Rocksteady, I really hope it's you.
Rocksteady, please. Cross my fingers.
Absolutely. Now, going back to the Facebook, I believe a certain Melanie Novosel actually posted as well here.
What does she have to say?
She had a couple of things to say, actually. So Melanie asks, what is the best power that he possesses?
Flight.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best. That's my favorite. I've always been just like Travis said, just flying, just imagining to fly is just so cool.
I think the greatest superpower he has ever had is the ability to throw a see-through S logo at his enemies.
Oh, get out of here with that nonsense.
No. That actually did happen, by the way, Ronnie. He totally does that.
Man, I missed now.
That's Superman 2, by the way. Yeah, gosh, definitely flight. I want to say something else. Definitely X-ray vision.
That's cool.
Yep. Other than lead. I guess they had to put a limit somewhere, but yeah, for sure. I guess flight and then X-ray vision for sure.
What about you, Ronnie?
I would say the super strength, man.
Yeah.
Just tearing a car door off of the car.
That's pretty legit.
Man. Yeah.
I feel like if you didn't know already, like if flying wasn't an option, the super strength would be great. But if you knew that you could fly or have super strength, it'd be hard to pick the super strength over flying, though.
Mm-hmm. And then her second question, which we kind of touched upon a little bit, out of anyone who has portrayed the character of Superman, movies and TV shows, who played him best?
All right, so we talked about Christopher Reeve, Tom Welling, Brandon Routh, Henry Cavill. We never talked about Dean Cain though, the old Lois and Clark adventures.
Yeah.
So my wife and I, we watched The Adventures of Lois and Clark a few years ago because we had never. It was like on CBS or something like that back in the day, and it was a point where it was a more mature version of Superman rather than geared towards kids the way Christopher Reeve, his Superman was.
Sure.
So I never watched it when I was growing up, but I mean, Dean Cain as Superman, I would think he was probably the worst out of all of them. I mean, Brandon Routh was bad, but he was trying to be Christopher Reeve, which was kind of his downfall.
Well, I mean, that was kind of what the script called for.
I know. I mean, he was supposed to be the Christopher Reeve Superman.
Yeah.
Because it was a continuation of that Christopher Reeve storyline. But yeah, I think that was just his downfall. Plus, Ronnie, you'll get this, is the plot of that movie was also about real estate from Lex Luthor. 100%.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I will say that kind of an unsung hero recently is an actor by the name of Tyler Hoechlin. He's the guy that plays Superman in the Arrowverse. And I think he does a pretty good job as Superman, for sure. It's a very modern take, while at the same time having some of that classic type Superman-esque type stuff. So I think he does a really good job with it. But yeah. And finally, the last question. I guess we've saved the best for last. from our own Lucas Ham Swisher on the Discord. He posts this. He had a couple of questions. If you were Superman, what would be your 3-step program to bringing world peace?
He's not allowed to ask a question. Next question.
Banned.
3-step program. So do we each want to do a step?
We can do that.
All right, step 1.
That's not a good idea. I feel like I don't have a step.
Rule the earth.
Wow.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I would actually just completely agree with Patrick. If I had Superman's powers, I would rule this place like a dictator.
Good Lord, like the Hitler of superheroes.
It'd be the
Wow,
most.
there's
It'd
not
be the
gonna be
most.
any
it'd be the
genocide or
most-
anything.
Yeah, I'm not gonna kill anybody. I mean, unless I have to. But
I'm going to be a nice dictator, yeah.
it would all be for self-benefit and totally selfish.
You have no freedom whatsoever, but I love you all. But
That's all the steps.
yeah. Step 2.
It's all on your shoulders, Mark.
Oh gosh. Get rid of all nuclear bombs.
Step 3. Get rid of Batman.
No.
Hey, that's my step.
No.
All right. There's our step 1, 2, and 3. Rule the earth. Get rid of the nuclear weapons and get rid of Batman. All right, let's move on.
There you go.
Moving on.
Follow-up question, since I never write in, says Lucas. That's because you're on the show.
Yeah, he also doesn't
What
know
is-
the rule of only one question per show.
Apparently not. Just breaking all the rules here. Follow-up question, since I never write in. What is something selfish or not heroic that you would want to do, or at least be tempted to do, having these great superpowers, which obviously Ronnie wants to rule the world?
I'll rob a bank.
Turn back time? Just by turning the Earth's rotation?
Yeah, because that's not going to wreck the entire earth by doing that.
I don't think anybody really understands time travel, because
Man,
they
every
don't.
single time you made a mistake, you just fly up there and turn it around.
And you got to do it
Redo.
angrily, just like Superman. Like
Yeah.
that angry cry that he
That was the only emotion you got out of Superman the entire movie,
yeah.
which was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely turning back time. I would love to be able to control time, for sure.
That's fair. Does that conclude our Superman discussion? Is that
I
what
believe it.
Is that what I'm
I
picking up?
believe it does.
All right.
Does anybody else have thoughts?
Oh no, I'm well past. I'm well out of my element already. I've been out of thoughts for an hour.
No. Well, I will say that while Superman is not my favorite superhero, I definitely have respect for him. I had Batman comics and Superman comics growing up.
Yeah, and I think that was indicative for a lot of people who grew up with superheroes, for both Superman and Batman.
Sure.
I mean, it was hard. It was like the 1-2 punch.
Yeah,
Really.
absolutely. But he certainly paved the way. He paved the big way for lots of future superheroes. So, mad respect for the Man of Steel.
Mad respect given. Do we
yes.
have any madly respectful music to end this podcast with?
Why, yes, we do.
DJ Marc.
Well, as always, you can check out the Good Morning Guys morning playlist on Spotify, as well as Apple Music. Thank you so much, Bernabe, for updating things on the Apple Music side. So this week's editions, of course, are Superman related. So the first song I'm adding is Three Doors Down's Kryptonite.
Ooh, great song.
Yeah. The second song is a song literally called Superman. Is from a group called Goldfinger. Now, you may have heard this song on the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack. absolutely love that song.
That's a good one.
A lot of the songs from the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater soundtrack are like burned into my brain. And that was one of them. So adding that to the list. And of course, the concert version of the John Williams Superman theme.
Yes.
So I really hope that those super additions to the playlist help you get your good morning on. And that is it for me.
All right, now I'm supposed to close this baby out.
That would be great.
That is all for us. I would like to personally thank, from the depths of my heart, Marc Boucher and Patrick Novosel for literally carrying this entire Superman discussion.
I'll tell you what, you talked a lot. You talked more than you think you should.
There was actually way more than I thought I was going to have. I will tell you that. But I'd like to thank all the listeners out there. You guys can contact us on Facebook, Twitter. You could also call us at what number, Mark?
929 GMG, guys.
929 GMG, guys. See, you guys could just do that. I knew that. I was just making sure Mark did.
Nailed it.
But as for all of us, thank you, and we are out.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Boom, boom, boom. Mr.
Luthor.
Why in the world would Lex Luthor have an idiot like that under him?
Basically, it's ego stroking on another level, just because he knows how smart he is compared to this man. He even says it like it's amazing that man has enough brain power to basically make those legs move.
I'll tell you what. So
we all want.
After watching Superman again, I'm like, okay, there's a lot of nostalgia with this. The Superman suit, Christopher Reeve, and the music is really what I remember.
Yeah.
All the other plot holes and missing information and time jumps, I don't remember that. So after watching it, I'm like, I totally get it. I totally get it from your perspective, Ronnie. But I thought the biggest one I could put past all the things that are happening in the movie, except for when Lex Luthor, in like the span of 30 seconds, knows what Superman's weakness is.
Yeah.
It was just like, really? He's like, oh, the radioactive pieces from Krypton, that's got to be his weakness. Got it. It's like, well, really?
That doesn't make any sense.
How would
you come to that point?
I know. How would you come to that point? And then in the newspaper, there's a guy in some other part of the world that has a piece of this meteorite.
Well,
like,
he pulled it from a National Geographic book.
Oh, well, still.
He just happened to grab the right copy of National Geographic that would have that kind of information. So, yeah, it's not perfect at all.
Boom, boom, boom.